Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Bruce Miggets. I'm a Division Island board member for many years. I'm also a land use attorney, but I do most of my work in Nassau County. This is about some top projects underway now in Suffolk County, and I have to confess, I don't know much about them, so I'm as interested as you are to learn about them. I'm just going to try to keep the traffic flowing, so we can try to get done. We're running late, we have about an hour to go. We have I think 4 presenters. I'm going to ask each one of them to just say hello briefly, mention their project to you, and then we can have each one talk for about maybe 10 minutes. And then to have some time for questions, unless if the speakers want to take questions during their presentation.
We can't hear, all we hear is the other.
I know, I was in that room before, it's very difficult. All I can say is try to move forward.
Couple of seats up here for those who want to.
So if I could ask the panel to introduce themselves, 1 or 2 minutes, what their project is about, and then we'll have each one make a presentation.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. Everybody in the back of the room hear me? I'll try to raise my voice. Thank you. I can enunciate, I think. My name is Arthur Crowers. I'm with Conifer Realty out of Rochester, Ohio, but I am their first Long Island-based attorney, Long Island-based developer. I have been in Ohio for 26 years, so I apologize for losing my accent. But I was born and raised in Stony Brook, back on the island after a long period of time, and excited for our projects that we're developing in Suffolk County.
Hi, everybody. I'm Peter Flory, DNF Development. We are a Levtown-based developer. We have a few projects that we're working on in Suffolk County, and looking forward to presenting.
Hello, my name is Rob Gito from the Gito Group. We're commercial developers based out of Port Jefferson. We get involved with retail, office, and some multifamily projects as well.
Right, I'm sorry.
Hi, Ralph Fasano, Concern for Independent Living. Eric asked us to present on 2 projects that we have, one that just opened in Alcantara, and one that is nearly finished in New Island.
Is somebody already set up there on PowerPoint, will it make a difference what order you're doing? You set up? Yep. Okay. 10, 15 minutes tops.
This is phase 3 of the development, Cornerstone. This is exclusively residential, this on the north side of the track.
Okay. So DNF Development is as I mentioned, based in Levittown. We are developers, we're builders, and also property managers. We have focused largely on multifamily housing in Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk. We have a portfolio of about 2,500 residential units as we own and we also manage. And we're actively developing on Long Island. We have also now branched into assisted living. So it's a considerable departure from what we've been doing. But we're working together with a company called Life Care Services, who is going to be managing our assisted living. This is what you see up on the screen right now is a picture of a project that is under construction right now on East Main Street, just east of the New Village project that Tritech recently completed on North Ocean and Main Street. If you haven't been to Patchogue recently, it is an unbelievable example of smart growth and transit-oriented development. I'm sure many of you are familiar with what's going on Long Island, familiar with what's happening in Patchogue. This is a project we worked closely together with the mayor and the village trustees in designing this project. We wanted it to be reflective of the surrounding area. There's a congregational church just a couple of doors down from this that has very similar features, the porte cochere coming in, the arches, and the brick color. So this is 144 beds. It includes in it a bistro, a pub, a movie theater, a full dining area for all of the residents, memory care facilities. From the 4th and 5th floor, there are views of the Great South Bay and Fire Island. And it's going to be another exciting development along Main Street in Patchogue. This is just a little map showing you where the project is located. Here's the Patchogue train station, and again, it's right in downtown Patchogue. Next up, we have a project that we are just really in the planning stages on right now. This is a senior LGBT affordable project that we're working on in Bayshore. It's on Park Avenue in Bayshore. It is less than a quarter mile from the Bayshore train station, and we are actually stepping in the shoes of another developer who was unable to continue on. It is, as I mentioned, very much in the planning stages right now, and we're hoping that this will be underway during 2017.
I mean, it's like magic. So why is it that we don't have it?
As to where it's located. This is another project that we're working on in North Belfort. Also a transit-oriented development, very close to the Belfort train station. This is a 70-unit, again, affordable, but this is a multi-family project that we're working on. As you know, in Suffolk County, one of the big challenges is the lack of sewers. And so here we're bringing in a mini sewage treatment plant to develop this. And this will be, when completed, 70 units of affordable multifamily housing. Show you where this is. So this is the site right here. And the railroad station is right here. There are 12 trains that come through every day. So it's an exciting project that's underway right now.
So rather than the purchase community where you have to round.
Another project, there's an example of, the kind of look. Actually had the architect with us here today. This is another project that we're working on. This is not in the downtown, but it is very close to the Long Island Expressway. This is another assisted living facility that we're working on. It's going to be a 144-bed facility in Hopewell at 111 in Hopewell. And we are going through a zone change right now. We're expecting this to be underway sometime in 2017. There's currently a blighted, abandoned gas station on the corner of Wheeler Road, which is 111, and Snyder. That is going away and replaced by retail, and then again the assisted living facility there. So these are a couple of examples. These are 4 examples of projects that we're working on. We have a 5th that I didn't mention because it doesn't really fit into the downtown redevelopment, but I'll just mention it very quickly. It's 117 units of limited equity co-op that we are finishing in Melville right now. It's on Ruin Road. We are hopefully days away from getting our CO, and I would welcome any and all to take a look at it. I think it's a great example of what mixed income affordable housing can look like on Long Island, and we're hoping to use this as a prototype to continue to educate those who might be concerned about what affordable housing is. I think when they look at this and other examples of what my colleagues here are going to tell you about today, of what it can look like and the kind of quality that can be developed in these kinds of projects. So
Discretionary spending on Main Street. Village of Farmingdale.
from me, so thank you very much.
How long did it take you to get through the permitting process on some of these projects? What was the problem with developers?
Yeah, the last project that I told you about, the one that we're just about to get our certificate of occupancy on, we inherited from another developer. We bought it out. They had been working on it for 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah. So that's probably a little bit longer than the average, but not that much longer than the average. Our experience has been anywhere from 2 to 4 years is really what we find realistically. If you're seeking a zone change, zone change, then site plan approval, and then if you have a variance, which oftentimes you do, because as affordable developers, we're seeking parking relief on some of these, especially in transit-oriented developments. So, yeah, the timing is often lengthy.
The project, 15 years, did that have to go through an environmental impact statement?
They did not, they didn't have to go through a full-blown EIS. That was not what held it up. It was really more the getting the political will to get the project to move forward. Once we got over that hurdle, then things moved fairly quickly. And I have to say, since then, this is in the town of Huntington. The town of Huntington has been fantastic. They really have, in terms of moving the process along and really helping us get to the finish line.
You want to take some questions now, or at the end?
Time frame, 2001 to now, the time frame to talking about it. Look how this is going to evolve. You are sort of exempt the evolution of the whole Long Island acceptance of change. I think it's part of your 50 years. Right?
Thank you. Actually, they started the whole process before we even founded the company. So.
Well, they did How nice of them.
Just a question about specifically your co-op, because you can't get tax credits, you will not abide by like fair housing. Or what are some of the means by which it is private investing or it's funding?
On the affordable side, all of the projects that we have done recently have been funded through the low-income housing tax credit, including the co-op.
You were able to get a co-op through?
Yes. That was an unusual financing that we kind of dusted off from an example that we found that was done several decades ago. I'm not sure. It may well be that it'll be several decades again before you see this happen again, because there's a lot of brain damage. But it is the residents are shareholders in the cooperative corporation. But really, the only vehicle for creating affordable housing at this point, and that may change with the new administration, but the only vehicle that we have found, really, I think, credible one, certainly not on the federal level, is coming through tax credits and accompanying financing that goes along with that through the state. There's also funding through the county. County has resources. Both Nassau and Suffolk County have resources, and the localities also do contribute. Most often through tax abatements and that kind of thing is how we get contributions from them. But that's really the primary source of funding on affordable projects this day. One of the challenges that we have with that is getting a broad enough mix of incomes, getting both the low and also the more moderate. So, tax credits is only available for those who are at or below 60% of the area median income, which means that you're somewhere in Suffolk County, 35, depending on your household size, 35 to 45, maybe $50,000 tops. So that's a fairly narrow band of affordability. What we're trying to do always is expand that, and more there are mechanisms to do that. It's really important. I'm sure some of my colleagues will speak to that, but we want to be able to provide not just that narrow band of affordability, but a larger swath to reach the folks who are 80 and 90% of their
We were in
income.
Dave Gallo.
Yep.
Going to bring young developer for Southampton.
Yes.
It's in Southampton. Texas. So we were able to get 80% on the two developments for Sandy Hollow, which is still in zoning, believe it or not, and Sandy Hollow.
So the issue with going above 60% of the area median income is that you lose your federal credit, but there are state credits that are available. They'll allow you to go up to 90%. It sounds like a lot of numbers thrown around and jargon, but that is really a very critical piece of getting affordable housing built, is being able to get that good mix, because it's not only essential to reach those, the folks, because those are the people, folks who are out looking for affordable housing, but it also helps in terms of getting the people, folks in the community to understand and accept it.
Great, Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ralph, I think you're in the queue up there.
Hi everyone, I'm Ralph Fasano. I'm the Director of Concern for Independent Living. I've got a pretty brief slideshow just showing some of the things that we developed and to talk a little bit about the two projects that Eric asked me to discuss. When Eric first asked, this is the second time I'm presenting at the Smart Growth Conference, and the last time he put me on a panel that was transit-oriented development, and I said to him at the time, I don't even know what that is. I'm a housing developer, and we develop where we can afford the land, and he said, we'll do fine. So then when he asked me to do a top project, I thought to myself, is he tricking me? Is this transit-oriented programs, or does he really mean top programs? But I'm glad that it was the latter and that he considered us. So we have a pretty simple mission. We provide supportive housing and affordable housing, and are working on moving more towards mixed-use housing. So we took over 3 adult homes over the span of 2 years and converted them to housing, supportive housing. This is in Sayville, West Sayville. This is Riverhead. We were one of the first older buildings to really, rehabilitate on Main Street, and many of the store owners really complimented us, basically fixing up the building and bringing in people that walk along Main Street and shop in their stores. So all of our buildings have physical fitness centers, computer rooms, libraries. This we tried to restore. A lot of that is the existing wood from the former Henry Perkins Hotel built in the 30s. This is an adult home in Patchogue. We renovated this, 50 studio units. It's a U.S. Air Force veteran that wound up being homeless, and now lives there. And we won a Vision Award a couple of years ago for, this is an Army base in North Amityville, and we converted it to housing for homeless veterans and their families, 60 units of housing. And that inspired us to do the next project, which is in Ronkonkoma, where we purchased land through a development that had run out of funding. Once again, there's a need for a sewage treatment plant, and the developer really couldn't afford to develop this. So we devised a plan of 59 units of housing, walking distance to stores and the downtown corridor of Lake Ronkonkoma. This just opened about a month and a half ago. We're filled up now. There's 30 units for homeless veterans and 29 workforce housing units. It's really a great community. we don't really start from the point of let's develop smart growth projects. We start from the point of let's develop housing for people that need them. And the two really come together because when you develop the housing for people that really need it, they move in. Just recently talked to two veterans, both of whom were disabled in Iraq and Afghanistan, and both of whom really thought their lives were over. They were at the Northport VA, they were in a hospital setting, and they had no means for getting housing. And one woman said when she just wanted to get out of the hospital there, and she said she'll take anything, and she actually accepted the apartment before seeing it. And when she saw the apartment, she just started crying hysterically, and she couldn't believe it. She felt like it was just a new opportunity to live her life. As I said, we try to have lots of community space, so that's the community building there. We talked to the Lake Rock Conference Association, George Shrem is an architect. He looked at our plans and he said, I'd like you to do a little bit more here, a little bit more there, and we did, and he had some very good ideas and supported us. Your question of funding, as Peter said, the tax credit, you can see the tax credit is more than half of this. It's a very important source of funding to do housing. On Long Island, we haven't been very good at using it. So the last statistics I heard were about 14% of the population in the state. We use less than 4%. We get about 4% of the tax credit dollars. And one of the reasons is because it takes so long to develop here on Long Island. So if there are zoning issues, if there are site plan issues, the state's not going to wait around 5 or 6 years. The deadlines that they have set for us have helped us. They've helped us push this along by saying to a locality, we can get this amount of dollars, and we can bring it into the community, but it can't take 3 years. And so the project that we did in Amityville for veterans, we won an award, a significant award there of $14 million in tax credits. But Governor Cuomo's really into doing things quickly, and so it basically gave us 9 months to break ground. And so after initially celebrating that, wow, we've got this large tax credit thing, we basically said, oh shit, we can't do this in 9 months. So there's no way you can do it. We needed a zoning change. We needed site plan approval. We had to get the rest of the funding together. We needed HUD approval to tell the Department of Defense that they could give us the land. Each one of those steps takes 3, 5, 6 months. And so that's when you saw the picture. Chuck Schumer came out and he held a press conference and he brought Rich Schaefer with him and he brought the county executive there. And he said, basically, we're going to do this in 9 months. We know it takes 2 years, but we're going to do it in 9 months. And the political will was there and we broke ground in 9 months.
It was done in 9 months?
Yeah, we did. We broke ground. So, and this is Middle Island. This is, you'll see a second plan soon. So the design here, this was also another failed project. It was in bankruptcy court. And so it's 123 units, 50 are supportive housing, the rest are workforce housing. And there's some retail that we don't own. Once the housing is developed, we bring up the district. Dave Gallo's looking into this. We work together on this project. So this is creating a downtown. There is no downtown in Middle Island, and once again, this is a massive sewage treatment plant that will also service the J6, the retail, and other housing around it. So we were able to raise the dollars here. And so this is a little bit hard to read, but so this is Route 25 over here. We built a road, Renaissance Boulevard, that goes to Route 21, Roger Point Road. And along that corridor, there will be stores and shopping. And we're creating a walking environment. Also across Route 25, there's stores there, but it's a very difficult area to navigate and get across the street. So Vision actually helps work with the town to develop a safer way of walking around this community. So you see the numbers get kind of higher here. This project was, nobody really wanted to touch this because there was a lawsuit with the town about the zoning. The area is in a tiger salamander extinction zone. So under Renaissance Boulevard and under Route 21, we built these culverts so that if the tiger salamanders ever came back, they had a way to get under the roads to the pond that no longer exists. $750,000, I won't get it.
How about the hiking Clover? Can you picture of those?
They didn't, that was not on this site. So once again, the Ronkonkoma site is up and going. This is, we think we're going to finish this by the end of this December and start occupying. And I think I'm going to stop there. Any questions or comments?
Rob Gito again from the Gito Group. I have to apologize. I don't have a PowerPoint for you, so I'll just discuss the project that Eric wanted me to speak about. We are working on 4 other multifamily mixed-use projects, but the one that is under construction and the first phase is open is the Hills in Port Jefferson. This project consists of 74 units. Once again, the first phase opened in July. It's 38 market rate units. And these gentlemen, I tip my hat, but we do not have an affordable component to our project. Each building, when completed, will have their own separate garages underneath. And then there are 3 stories of apartments, studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms. This is in Port Jeff, in the uptown area of Port Jefferson Village, which was and still is, a blighted area. It steps to the Port Jefferson train station, which is 1 stop to Stony Brook University. We're also about an 8-minute drive to Stony Brook University. That being said, we built it in phases. We were concerned. We were the first guy to throw a project up in this area. We didn't know what was going to happen. People thought we were crazy. My own wife, my mother, did not want us getting involved with this project. At the end of the day, within 3 weeks, we had the building pre-leased. Once we put it on the market in May, we opened up July 15th. Everybody moved in July 15th. Well, between July 15th and July 30th, the building was full. We have a waiting list for the second phase, which we anticipate to be completed June 1st. The rents are higher than we thought, as well as the waiting list. We didn't expect that at all. The big drive for doing this project here, Port Jefferson Village, been great partners working with them. Stony Brook University keeps expanding. We also have, people don't think about St. Charles Hospital and Mather Hospital, which are even closer, both in Port Jefferson. Mather Hospital created a residence program as well. Port Jefferson has sewers, which is the only reason we're able to do this project. On top of that, funding is a $21 million project when completed. We did work with the Brookhaven IDA. As mentioned this morning, without them, we would have never put a shovel in the ground for this project. There's no way it could have been done. Besides that, all the financing is conventional financing and our own investment. So it's been a great project. We're excited about it. It helped change this uptown area slightly. A couple commercial spaces were leased up. A couple other property owners have fixed up their buildings. And now it's opened up the area to other property owners coming to us and other developers to help jumpstart this revitalization area here in Port Jeff. So unless you have any specific questions on the Thank you.
Were they apartments or townhouses?
They're apartments.
And who if you had who were the people renting?
So I would say about 60 to 70% are affiliated with Stony Brook University. Because of the rents, they're not undergrad situation. It's mostly medical students, residents, nurses, doctors, and then we have some empty nesters and teachers. But like I said, about 60-70% is that makeup. We have another project in Port Jefferson Village, a mixed-use building, and it's the same case. About 70% is affiliated with Stony Brook University. There's a big demand for housing there. Most of the areas do not have sewers, so the apartments are not getting built in the area. Stony Brook University is creating a lot of housing, but medical students, professors, and staff aren't living on campus. They're living off campus. The town of Brookhaven, which Stony Brook sits within, is cracking down on a lot of illegal housing that's been rented out to students. So all of that combined is creating quite a demand Tritech's building a 112-unit complex in Port Jeff Village, and there are several other large apartment complexes being proposed for the area due to this need.
Let me ask you a question, Bob. Having been to Port Jeff many times, I know there's a parking problem in Port Jeff.
Sure.
All right, so do these developments have parking provided?
So we would not build the project because we feel we're very sensitive to parking, and we don't understand when municipalities give that easement on parking. It's funny, we have a CVS in Port Jefferson Village, and the parking lot for the CVS is across the street. People in Suffolk County will not cross the street to do their shopping. The CVS, they're doing fine, but they don't do as well as they would in a freestanding location with the parking on site. You go to a shopping center, and in Nassau as well, you have a King Kong on one side and a Rite Aid on the other. People are not going to walk from one side to the other. Parking and having a car is crucial on Long Island. Out of the 38 tenants that are there, only one uses the train. Everyone else has 1 to 2 cars. So yes,
You can't say that a small growth site.
I know. Unfortunately, it's the truth. Well, the good thing is, environmentally, though, it is, people are using the train to go to Stony Brook University, but they still have a car.
It's a reality.
Yes, it is. The bus system is not where it needs to be.
So the project you built, does it have parking on site?
Absolutely.
It does.
Yes, underground parking. The majority of tenants have space underground. It's a secure parking facility. Then we have some surface spaces for visitors and overflow.
What kind of rents were you achieving, or are you achieving in studios, homes, and shoes?
So the studios were about 1,700. 1 bedrooms are 1,850 to 1,950, and the 2 bedrooms are 2,300 to 2,500. They all pay separate utilities. Square footage, studios are about 700. The 1 bedroom 750 up to 1,000 square feet, and the 2 bedrooms are about 11 to 1,250. So they're good sized units. They have laundry inside, all hardwood floors, granite. There's a fitness center. There's a lounge.
I've seen the project. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
John Zayer, the Public Relations and Marketing Group. Is your projects or the other project you mentioned in Port Jeff, are they in the downtown by the waterfront or up by the railroad station?
So the one that I'm not really talking, the other one that we did previously is in the downtown part of, not on the waterfront, but in the downtown area.
CVS.
The CVS one. The one I'm talking about now is in the uptown portion
Really?
of Port
Okay.
Jefferson. Yeah, it's the first project really. It's like a 2-block section of the village that's quite blighted. So
Blighted,
this is
yeah.
the first project really to go up.
And
Thank you.
Morning, guys. I'm also in the same boat. I'm a pinch hitter, so I apologize. My colleague Alan Handelman was originally supposed to be here. So Alan's much taller than I am, so I apologize for that. In the back, can't see me. So Conifer is the 5th largest developer of affordable housing in the United States. And so what we do, the only thing that we do is affordable housing. And having been away from away from Long Island for 26 years, coming back to develop on Long Island and seeing these 15-year, 12-year, 10-year development cycles actually was the challenge that I wanted to come back for. What I find fascinating in this theme when we're talking here is that there is no obstacle other than politics to get into it. Every time someone talks about a deal, all they have to say is, and then the political will change, we got a deal done in a normal time frame. And when we talk about smart growth, we're talking about the summit, that really is the first lesson that I learned when I came here. If political will is there, we can do a deal in 9 to 12 months like anybody else in the country can. If it's not there, it's going to be a long slog to deliver to Long Island with a demand that's just over the moon. And that's really the issue that we face. So we're developing right now in multiple locations, but the project we wanted to talk about today is in Riverhead, which is a very popular place among developers now because it has all of the various things you need to develop. I was at a Suffolk County legislator meeting and they asked us what the price was for the project. We are at the corner. Everybody know where the Chase, we're right next to the Chase Bank building in downtown Riverhead, the former site of the Long Island Science Center. I went there as a kid. It's a little surreal coming back and watching them move out of that building into another space, but we're going to be building a 45-unit affordable project right on the Peconic River. We paid $1.8 million for that site, and the Suffolk County legislator, one of the one of the legislators went absolutely crazy. You know, $1.8 million for this site, it's half an acre. That's insane. And my response is, well, first of all, only 8% of Long Island is developable. You add to that, we have to find a place that has sewer. You have to find a place that allows you the political will to get it done. You have to find a place where you can get, and obviously, a pilot to secure to get that done. You've got to, obviously, the waters and sewers, the infrastructure has to be there. It starts, you add all of those things up, it starts adding on to the price of what we're doing, which is why someone joked with me, what was the last site I purchased? I purchased 3 acres in Ohio. What did I pay for that? And I paid $250,000. So, and I got that deal developed in 9 months. It was, you know, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And then I come here and we're paying, I think, over $11 million for a project in Hempstead. So, I mean, things are obviously radically different. So we're developing 45 units in downtown Riverhead. We have strong support from the community, which has made this project enjoyable. But even with that support, it still took us 2.5 years to get to full site approval because not everybody was on the same page. Everybody wanted a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. Community benefits agreement is always fun to negotiate and try to get that arranged. But our project is interesting because, like I think Dave Gallagher did a project in Patchogue with Art Space. So we're doing artist preferential housing in Riverhead. The community really wanted it. They believe that artists in their core downtown will be a linchpin to successful revitalization moving forward. So we've created a committee in partnership with East End Arts to evaluate the portfolios of potential residents. And we hope to see a lot of artists. We have exhibition space in our project. It's also interesting because our community space is all on the 5th floor, which we've really never done before, to maximize the views of the Peconic River. So it's really an interesting design. That was Sal Coco's idea, so it's a beautiful project. I'm sorry I don't have a presentation because it really doesn't do Sal's design justice. It's a very, very awkward site, and to get the project in, the space that we needed and with the support of the community was not an easy feat. The other interesting thing is we also have money from the state that for people displaced by Superstorm Sandy. That's an interesting source of funds because we're not exactly sure that there's really anybody who hasn't found new housing, but we've used the money. We're going to connect with the various support groups for that. I'll be curious to see how many people actually relocate to our project who were displaced. But our project is entirely financed we have 7 sources. We have obviously low-income housing tax credits. We have the GOSER money, the Sandy money from the state. We have money, we're partnered with the Community Development Corporation of Long Island, which is a critical partner for us. We really found and built a strong partnership with them. They were critical to getting the political work done that we needed to get done to get this project approved. It would not have been done without their leadership and effort, and they also bring some money to the table through the Empire State Development Fund. So it's a very exciting project, but it is a lesson in a kind of a microcosm of the issues that we face on Long Island in terms of getting deals done and not being tied up in the past, so that we can move on to getting more development done, because this project will probably lease in 3 months, if that. As all of our projects lease in a matter of minutes as soon as we come online, because even rents that would in Ohio give me a heart attack here are highly competitive. So, any questions?
So what was the attraction to Long Island? It's Ohio.
Well, first of all, it's an interesting question because I'll answer it in reverse and then answer it again. So I left Ohio I am the example of there was no there for me 26 years ago. I didn't see myself having the income to be able to move out of my parents' house. All of my friends were living in their parents' houses until they were late 20s, or my sister until late 20s, early 30s. I was on my own in Ohio at 20. So then suddenly you realize, my parents are aging, and talking about having to leave Long Island, this is their home, the only place they ever wanted to live. That's not as viable as it used to be 20 years ago for folks on a fixed income. My father was a butcher, my mother worked for the IRS. That's not, they weren't high-end income folks. So the idea of coming back and helping them age in place was important. And then the idea of Ohio, I was the person who wrote all of the guidelines for the state of Ohio for many years. So I was very comfortable there, and I wanted a little discomfort. And one thing I can say about development on Long Island, it is uncomfortable. So without question, it's uncomfortable. But I've learned more.
That's not what we heard upstairs.
Politics.
Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, I love it. I mean, I've had more fun here, and I mean, right now I'm not getting any sleep. We have an application due next week. We have a closing the week after that. My wife hasn't seen me since we've moved here. There's all sorts of issues. We've got to find a better balance. But ultimately, it is the most fascinating place I've ever developed. People talk about, ask me what I'm doing out here because I have strong relationships with some major developers across the country. And I said, well, I develop in 3 markets, Suffolk and Nassau counties and Westchester. Suffolk and Nassau counties are so difficult to develop, I don't get any sleep. Westchester is so bad, they made an HBO miniseries about it. So you can get a sense of the life that I'm living there. But what the other thing that really has changed, has impacted that, is that I'm at a table with what most people would define as competitors, but I've not experienced that for even 1 minute, because ultimately the demand is just so high here that we could work every minute of every day for the rest of our lives and not solve the problem that we're facing. And there's just not enough hours in the day to meet the demand that's there. I mean, I laugh when people I would have bet every dollar that your project would lease in 5 minutes. When you build it, they will come here. It's just that simple if you provide that quality. And so for me, that's the other thing, is that I really wanted to be a part of seeing the change that Long Island will hopefully embrace over the next 20 years. Can we change the face of that? Because I joke, my former intern is now an executive vice president of a development company in Ohio. He's a planner by background, and I mentioned to him that I took a picture of the statue of Robert Moses, and his response was, "Well, is it in the middle of a highway?" And I laughed. I said, "Well, not far from it. You're pretty good. It's actually in my town now." But my hope is to change that and have some kind of impact on the place that I grew up. So, because my mother is obviously, she's fighting Stony Brook University now, and there's lack of 7,000 units of housing because it's impacted significantly the neighborhood that I grew up in. So hearing units go up that can do that is a huge thing. So, thanks.
Yeah, I have a question. Given that you're affordable, certainly affordable housing, what kind of pushback do you get from these communities who want to put up these affordable?
Well, there's two. First of all, my hope is, we talked about the administration. Orrin Hatch is the biggest supporter of the tax credit program in the country. So where there are, one thing moves one way, Orrin Hatch could potentially, he wants to change the name to the, get rid of the low income and just put affordable housing tax credit or workforce tax credit, something like that. It really depends on the community. The bottom line is the quality of the units sell themselves if you can actually engage the folks to see what we're developing. But when you see the rents that were even at 50% rents, these are not cheap rents. I mean, in Ohio, I could 400, some units $300, $400, and that doesn't happen here. So, but we got embraced in Riverhead. That was not, that wasn't the issue in Riverhead. In Copeg, the same thing. We're building a project right now. It's going to be done in June in Copeg. We don't build where we are not wanted. We're not in the business of trying to fight with communities to solve their problems. Our hope as organizations like Vision Long Island can open up more avenues to that, which is kind of why when we see Riverhead, many people are developing in Riverhead because they're there. They're ready to embrace it, and they know what they want. Hempstead in Nassau County, they know what they want. So at least there's some leadership there to do that. So, but if you don't have that, it's really, you have to plan out very aggressively what your strategy is to offer that. I've done that in many communities. Supportive housing in particular is a challenge to do that. I've developed supportive housing in downtown business districts and gotten unanimous support. So it's just a question of how you go about engaging the community to make them feel comfortable with what you're doing.
You mentioned, John Zayer again, you mentioned that in Ohio you would be losing sleep if you had rents of $2,000, $3,000 a month, and that's one of the things...
Losing sleep, I would have actually exploded.
Exactly. And one of the things I've been hearing today, some of these projects, the rents are $2,000, $3,000, and I'm in my mid-40s. I grew up saying, the message was, you grow up, you buy your own house.
Yeah.
You don't rent. I lived in my parents' basement for a little longer so I could buy a house.
Yeah.
Does that worry anyone in terms of development, that at some point people are going to say at $2,000, $3,000 a month, I could buy myself a house, and not a nice house actually on Long Island in many places, especially in Suffolk County? Does that worry anyone?
So I'm in the same age group and I'm in the same boat. Okay, I came from Ohio and lived urban adjacent in a beautiful, my house was built in the 1880s, a beautiful historic German house. Never had, walkable, everything, it was ideal. So my wife is from Cardington, Ohio, a town of 2,000 people that was wiped out by a tornado. I don't think anybody knows. So she came out here and everybody's like, oh, she's moving to the big city, and her response is, no, that's not the problem. My problem is I'm moving to Long Island. There's nothing there. I lived in an area where I could walk everywhere, and now I have to drive everywhere. There's no, it's no place to park. I don't have, so for her, she's experiencing a little bit of that. The down payment we had to put to buy a house here was staggering. I could have bought a very nice 3-bedroom house with the down payment in the suburbs of
But with first-time home buyer payments, assistance at 3% down, or veterans credit, at $3,000 a month, you could a $400,000 mortgage, and you'd be in an above-average house in Suffolk County.
Well, that's nice to say. So that's the problem. So we actually wanted to rent when we came out here, and we have 2 dogs. We wanted to rent a house. We were seeing houses I would not have paid on Long Island $150,000 for that were renting for $3,000 a month. My mother would walk into them because my wife hadn't arrived yet, and my mother would be like, I wouldn't leave my dog here. So, and that was not an unusual statement. That was a lot of what we were seeing. That's the challenge that Long Island faces. That ultimately, and our rents are not at $3,000. The affordable rents are not at $2,000 and $3,000. So for us, we're looking to confound those expectations. The lack of multifamily housing on Long Island is at a critical mass, because that's where you have, it's supposed to be a life cycle of housing. It's supposed to start in your parents' basement, move up to an apartment, move up to a nicer apartment, and then move up to some home ownership. And I've done home ownership in the past as well. That's just not possible for many people here. And finding a house at $350,000 to $400,000 that you want to live in, that meets, and particularly now when this generation has been raised on the assumption that you will have granite countertops and hardwood floors in the housing that you start with, that entire cultural shift has also impacted that as well. My parents, their house was put together with spit and ceiling wax, Formica floors, and the tiles pulled up after 5 years. So they have improved it over time. But that's another issue that we face, is facing those cultural challenges that impact the housing market, because it's also part psychological. The psychology of housing also impacts this as well.
Besides the low-income housing tax credit as the major force, do you think there's any other new things that are come that are going to help for, let's say, smaller infill type projects? Because the counties don't, they have some money, but it's not enough.
Yeah, and this is the issue we face. In Ohio, I'm doing a project in Hempstead that will have 5 times, may have 4 to 5 times the amount of gap financing resources in it than the state of Ohio has in total. One project. So I've come from that market where it's resources, soft resources, or resources for smaller projects are very scarce. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't see, particularly in this administration, I don't see.
Not only that, but I think given the pending change in the administration, we're going to see, further changes.
Reductions.
We're going to see, reduction in tax credit pricing, and, God only knows what's going to happen to HUD, but, I think that's pretty much it. We don't really expect, I think, to see the tax credit program eliminated. As you mentioned, Warren Patch, who's a staunch Republican, is certainly in favor of it, and it seems to have bipartisan support. So I think we're going to see a continuation of it, but there really isn't any other alternative out there right now in terms of affordable housing.
Yeah, in terms of affordable, the tax credit is the single largest generator of affordable housing in the country. HUD doesn't come close. So HUD has adapted to the reality that the tax credit program is the primary generator of affordable housing and has tried to partner more, work a little more synergistically with the IRS to get that program the most muscle it can get. But the tax credit program is, we may see changes to it to make it a little more impactful, like they may freeze, they may lock the 4% credit at 4%.
Raise the income level.
Yeah, raise the income. I mean, they've talked about blending the income level so that if you're targeting 60% rents, it could be the aggregate at 60%. So you could have someone at 80 and someone at 40, which opens up the market a little bit. It wouldn't impact us on Long Island too much, but in areas with a tighter market, it could see an impact. But I wouldn't be holding my breath.
If I could jump in just to play the other side, I agree with you. It's a treacherous time. But we, as advocates, we need to,
Absolutely.
I don't want to say spin, because that sounds like deceptive, but we need to get across that affordable housing, there's a lot of focus on infrastructure, and we need to get across that affordable housing provides the human infrastructure that communities need. You can build railroads and roads and other things like that, but if you don't have the human people that work and shop in neighborhoods, then you don't have a community. And I think that's what we need to focus, that there's going to be a lot of dollars for infrastructure. We need to use some of that for housing.
What do you build first? The housing or the infrastructure?
Well, you can't, the infrastructure, as a perfect example, we've been asked to come in and build in Belfort. Okay, there's some development in Belfort, they want development in Belfort. There's no there. There's no sewers, there's nothing there. So, and they continue to ask us to come out there. We'd love to be out there. But the infrastructure has to be there first. We just simply can't even consider it without that. You can throw all of the building dollars you want at us within the reasonable confines of these programs. There's not enough money to get sewers built, and so that's the challenge for me. In the housing, I'm a houser. I've been a houser all my life. I believe they work in tandem to do that, and they could be creative in the ways they encourage that. But I can't build where I don't have the infrastructure to make a project cash flow.
Which is really one of the reasons why the downtowns now are really the next frontier, I think, in affordable development and development in general on Long Island. And we've seen, it's pretty much Long Island's been built out east. I mean, there's pretty much nowhere else to go on Long Island. You're going to see it now coming back, and it's going to be coming back into the downtowns. And what we're finding, I think, is that it's more acceptable in the downtowns. The civics and the communities are finding that this type of development is more acceptable. Also, as they're getting to know a little bit better what we're doing, the quality of what we're doing, what impact it's having on the communities. So I think, and the downtowns typically, not always, but typically have the infrastructure that is critical to development.
But I have to say, I do not find that to be true in my practice, where the communities that surround the downtowns have welcomed these.
I said more welcoming. You will never have open arms, but my experience has been certainly that it's the opposition. You're always going to have opposition, but it's not going to be as fierce. But very much so. Yes.
Yeah, so my question is, it's so great to hear all these projects finally moving forward and seeing the change over the years. And there's a lot of talk about infrastructure, especially wastewater infrastructure, which is great. I don't really hear much about energy infrastructure. So what's happening with these projects in terms of making them efficient, renewable? I mean, the governor has a goal of 30%, 50 by 30. What's being done in these projects to do that?
There's a point structure for the applications that we submit, and if you're not good on that energy side, you're not going to get funded. It keeps getting stricter and stricter. It's a good development.
And this is the chat. So I'm a policy wonk. So this is, and so I was on the Enterprise Green Communities Executive Committee for the 2012 guidelines. I wasn't on the 2015. The challenge is there's this nexus between when some of these items become cost effective and when they can actually be put into a project that can make sense. The problem is a lot of states that they want the latest and greatest. And that, in California, the energy efficiency standards add up to $100,000 a year because we can't afford to pay for that and solve the first problem. So in New York, we talked about LEED, building LEED or building enterprise green communities, using the main standards, because the efficiencies for us are not only for the residents, but we also pay the utilities ourselves. So we want as efficient a building as we can get that's still cost effective for what we're trying to develop. So like tankless water heaters, that 10 years ago was way ahead of the curve and is now a standard in all of our buildings. We just put it in, so it's just easier for us. So as things come up, but we build almost every project you'll see funded with public money probably has as extreme an energy efficiency requirement as you will see in the market, more so often than the market rate itself because of the requirements that are put upon us.
We got about 3 minutes left. Any final questions for the panel? Let me ask one. Now, to be fair and balanced, to get permits, there are statutory requirements. Getting it done in 9 to 12 months is probably as fast as you can do it. 15 years is ridiculous. I find 2 to 3 years is probably the max, and that's too long. Just real quick, any suggestion how we can speed that up?
Well, if you read the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council's priorities, I mean, it goes through. I thought Ohio having 3 times the average government in the country was bad, and then I came to Long Island and found out we dwarf that. So, I mean, that really is the problem, is that we have I mean, and we talk about that at every Vision Long Island. We have multiple layers that require multiple things. Just yesterday, as a prime example, I got a call, we're trying to get the building demolished. I need a shut-off energy letter. I've got the fire marshal saying you can't turn the power off in the building because you may endanger the building next to it. I've got the building department saying I need the power turned off so I can issue you a demolition permit, and they're not necessarily talking. That's
most of you probably know, but in case someone don't, when you need a variance, that's one board, change zones another board, site plan reviews another board,
IDA is the county.
IDA, Suffolk County Planning Commission, have all the
Health Department, Suffolk County Health Department's the worst. They take way too long. Even just to review an application, the Health Department.
Yeah, we're in there right now.
Let me just say what Vision does here. So Rich Schaefer is the one that made it happen in 9 months. So he was at the day. When we talked to his staff, he said, absolutely can't be done. He pulled the staff together and said, what date do you need the building permit? And he told the staff, work backwards from that and make sure they have it by then. So I think the work that Vision is doing by getting the leaders to buy into the importance of us doing what we do helps. We just need to continue.
I think there was a genuine interest in collapsing those timeframes within the municipalities, but there are just so many levels that you have to go through, and different fiefdoms. You can't do what you're doing in New York City, where you have finite timetables as you go through that rezoning and land use process. It's never going to happen.
What they can do is they can consolidate the hearing. By statute, the zoning board has to be accepted in 15 hours. But they can have houses that you might select. They will have a joint hearing of the zoning board, and the town board, and the planning board, and that saves you a lot of things.
But it's the community involvement. That you said all of the consolidated meetings you want, but if 200 people show up and say, with Ken saying, turn down.
If it's only 200, that's the problem.
But the other issue is that there's no, if every one of these entities had a czar or someone, a single person, whose responsibility was to oversee the complicated sphere of people involved, to say, I need you 3 in a room, I need to get this done, we need to get this done by this date, but there's nobody. So it's, I have to bully this guy, and then I have to bully that guy, and then I have to bully that guy, all of whom don't see the bigger picture. They've got the work in front of them, they work at their pace, at their time. So there's nobody in there, and the executives all want it, but they're not going to be the ones shepherding it. So that would be a huge change if you just had someone within government who would be the person who would take this through what it needs to be and keep it up.
It does happen sometimes. Sometimes the town supervisor, if he or she wants a project they will jump on and push it. One last question.
The other question, as chairing the zoning board for 16 years, I've actually pulled the other boards into a room along with the board of trustees, sat down with somebody who's proposing a project, what do you think about it, where it's going to go, what do you guys need to get it done, and gone from there through the process, and it's gone much better.
Thank you all.